Okay, hello everyone. Good morning from Indonesia. Okay, it seems something wrong with the names. Everybody here is the names of everyone here is Lalain Firai. I need your help to rename yourself. Maybe problem with the glitch or system. Okay, so please rename yourself. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's start. Okay. Good morning, everyone from Indonesia. I'm Dudu Effendi, and welcome to today's international webinar, Transforming Traditional Classroom Teaching to Online Teaching. It's so amazing that so many countries have registered to participate for this event. There are more than 35 countries. Okay. They are from Australia, Bangladesh, Cambodia, England, Ghana, Hong Kong, India, Italy, Macau, Malaysia, Nepal, Philippines, Sri Lanka, Taiwan, Thailand, Moldova, Qatar, Romania, Scotland, Sweden, Tanzania, the Netherlands, Tunisia, Uzbekistan, Turkey, Kuwait, Argentina, Canada, and many more. Okay, thank you for your interest in participating in our webinar. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. You have joined the presentation listening using your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the telephone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You may need to click on other numbers to find the dial-in number for your country. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into the questions pane on the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We'll collect these and address them at the end of the presentation. And please use hashtag questions so we can identify that you are asking or you are going to give a question. Okay, we will start this event by opening remarks. Mr. Lianto, the Dean of Business and Economics Faculty of Vidya Dharma University, will deliver the opening remarks. Please welcome Dr. M. Lianto. Mr. Lianto, the time and Zoom are yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dudi. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to you all. Good morning, all who come from the Asian region. Good afternoon. Good evening to all who come from other parts of the world. Today is a great day. I do feel that the world is very small. We are now in the same meeting room. The world is borderless. Without neglecting the negative impact of COVID-19, the Corona revolution makes me possible to talk to you like now. At the beginning of the last century until the 1980s, the education world knew blackboard. And then whiteboard was introduced to replace blackboard. Now, the whole world knows the global board. At the official opening of this international web seminar on the transforming traditional classroom teaching to online teaching, as the Dean of Economics and Business Faculty of Vidya Dharma University of Pontianak, West Kalimantan, Indonesia, I would like to welcome our distinguished speakers. Michael Vanderpool, a lifelong learner with a passion for education of NSCC, Northwest State Community College. Melissa Beherkes, a success manager of Formative of the States. Nellie Deutsch, a Canadian education technology consultant, curriculum and instruction developer, researcher, writer, speaker, and community builder. Lana Snyder, the Vice President, Enrollment Management and Student Affairs at NSCC. Benedictus Berman Dwiyatmoko, a lecturer of the graduate program in English Studies, Sanata Dharma University. Paulina Irawati Paramita, a lecturer of English Department of Widya Dharma University of Pontianak. And Dudi Effendi, a teacher at Gembala Baik Junior High School, as the host and facilitator of this seminar. I hope that this seminar will discover new and applicable methods of teaching in this digital era so that we can assist the students and formation activists to respond to the real needs of the world according to their socio-economic, cultural, and political atmosphere. I am optimistic that the precious formative experience of the speakers will enrich and encourage us to make progress in our education world. May this seminar run smoothly and reach the goal that we hope. Billion thanks go to the committee of this seminar hosted by the Widya Dharma University of Pontianak. Thank you very much for your attention and participation in this seminar. Have a good luck.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lianto. Okay, thank you for the opening remark. Now we are going to start this event by introducing our first presenter. Okay, and he is Mr. Michael van der Poel. Mr. Michael van der Poel from Northwest State Community College. He is going to present about responsive learning design, and he is also the lead faculty, okay, of graphic design, if I'm mistaken. Okay, and his background is instructional design, if I'm mistaken, right? Yeah, okay. So let's welcome Mr. Michael van der Poel for the details. Okay, Michael, time is yours. Thank you.
Hey, there we go. Thank you. Thank you, Dudi. I appreciate that. And thank you. And I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Mr. Lianto, thank you for the introduction and opening. This is quite possibly, other than the experiences I've had with my family, one of the coolest things I've been able to be a part of. Can you hear me okay? Can I get a thumbs up from the audience? Awesome. You know, of all the things that I thought would have happened during our academic response to COVID-19 here in the United States, and specifically at Northwest State Community College, myself and Lana Snyder being able to be here and present on this topic today to an international audience is beyond even what I thought possible, just a few short months ago. We held a summit after the spring semester, and Mr. Effendi joined that and was a participant, and that's how this connection was made. So I think to start off with, one of the coolest things that I've witnessed in my time inside of education and with remote education is that ability to make connections between people. And I fully believe that the more people we're able to connect to as instructors, as leaders inside of our communities, that's just going to build better futures for all of us. So again, tremendous thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it very, very much. Duty, do I have the ability to share my screen? I do. Phenomenal. Okay. So before I share my screen and I'll bring up my presentation slides, one of the things that I want to make sure is that I know typically we do a presentation and there are questions that come at the end. My style is different from that, and it's one that I incorporate in my own classrooms. If you have a question at any time, feel free to post it over in the chat. I'll be monitoring that, or throw something at me and I'll do my best to address your question, answer your question. So without any further ado, I will go ahead and share my screen. Here we go. Can you see this? Thumbs up. All right. Build better futures. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the process of how I came up with some of these things, because I think that's important. I truly believe that in education, our goal is to build better futures for our learners. This is why I wake up every day, even when the struggles sometimes make you want to stay in bed. But building better futures for our learners, that's the focus that I have. That's the focus I know that Lana has, and I know that most educators have that focus. We want to build better futures for our learners and our wider community. So with the subtitle here, Responsive Learning Experience Design, this is something that I've been working on with Eric Ward, one of my peers who I've met in my travels. One of the goals that we have with responsive learning experience design is to be able to create learning experiences that meet our learners where they are. And what I've found out in all of my travels through education is that our learners are at such different levels of their understanding of our topics, their motivation for being inside of our classes, that us as instructors and instructional designers building an experience, a learning experience that takes into consideration all of the different reasons people may be inside of our classroom, I think will lead us to build better experiences. So let's see here. I've got this presentation divided into 3 parts. I think it's important. I'm not going to be quoting any studies or anything like that. Most of what I'm going to talk about is my own experience. So what I would like to do is start out with talking about my learning journey so you can understand where my thoughts and ideas come from. I by no means want to present myself as the person who knows everything about remote instruction, learning experience design, but I am somebody who has a lot of experience, and I think you having an understanding of where I'm coming from will lead us to better conversations, because at the end of the day, that's what this really is about. As anyone tries to transition from a traditional face-to-face classroom to a predominantly online experience, communication is going to be the fundamental key to all of it. And having respect and understanding for where other people are coming from, different ideas, the diversity of ideas is going to be vital. I'll also, after that, share my experience during what we did inside of my program the spring semester, this past semester, as we responded to COVID-19, because I don't know how to say this, I'll say it with as much humility as I can. Our program and what we did at Northwest State Community College, I feel was very successful. And that comes from my conversations with my learners during and after the experience. And then finally, I'll close with some things to consider when adopting new or expanding remote learning experience offerings. So some of the topics that I want to cover will be understanding our users, both teachers and learners. I think that sometimes gets lost in the discussion of building online classes. We tend to think that we're designing for learners, but we really need to make sure that we're thinking and considering teachers as users inside of this experience as well. They're the ones who are going to have to be able to navigate the learning management system, typically be able to use technology tools to interact with our learners. So while the focus tends to be on the learner, you can't lose sight that teachers are, the gasoline that makes the engine move. Communication, language that we use, the design process, some of the core principles within instructional design, and specifically with how those translate to remote learning. And then I'm also going to share some of the books that I've read along the way and continuously refer to as I continue to build and refine my own online courses. Seeking first to understand. I don't know if anyone in the audience is familiar with Stephen Covey, but he wrote a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I posit that one of the things that we're trying to do inside of academia and inside of education is to create highly effective people. And one of the principles, one of the 7 habits is seeking first to understand. So I'm going to talk about myself, and then I'm hopefully going to be able to get Duty and others to share some information about with how your school system is set up, how your university is set up, because that will help me to refine a little bit more of my talk along the way. So this is an example of what not to do with a slide in an online presentation. There are way too many words. So this is kind of my journey as a student. So instead of going through and leaving this up and speaking over top of it, I'm just going to go and show you the picture of my graduation. This is me being excited to have graduated from community college. But my experience as a learner, I think, is really important. And I think that is one of the things that sometimes gets lost when we talk about the interaction between teachers and learners. Sometimes teachers are looked at as guardians of knowledge, or people who are on this really high pedestal. And I think that diminishes sometimes the relationships that we have with our students. So I want to go ahead and just tell a little bit about my past and how I've experienced learning. I went to a Lutheran grade school. Then I went to a Catholic high school. My senior year, and those both being private institutions. My senior year of high school, I ended up transferring to a public high school. Definitely some interesting differences between the two, which I won't get into here, but it provided quite a different, just that different understanding of, we face a lot of the same issues, but at the same time, financial considerations, other solutions have to be considered when we talk about those two different institutions and the different approaches that they have. After I graduated high school, I ended up spending 8 years in community college. And community colleges are tertiary after the 12 years of mandated school here in the United States. I went on to the community college, and I took every single introductory class that I could think of as I worked on just finding what I wanted to do. And I think that's one of the things, and this is just in general, not just with either face-to-face or online learning, but just in general, sometimes when we work with our learners, we have to understand that they may not know exactly what they want to do. And part of our responsibility is to guide them to that understanding, and sharing our own experiences, I think, is a way that we're able to do that. After I finished community college, I did some entrepreneurial endeavors. Then I ended up doing a degree, earning a bachelor's in English from Oakland University, which is in Michigan. More entrepreneurial endeavors, and then I ended up graduating with a master's of education in learning experience design from Bowling Green State University. That was where I really had the first experiences with online learning. Specifically, the entire program itself was done online. Now, I was fortunate there because I was a teaching assistant, a graduate assistant, and my office was right down from my instructors. So I got the best of both worlds in that scenario. I got to walk down the hall and talk to my faculty face to face, but then I was required to interact with all of my peers in an online environment. And then I ended up completing my journey kind of sort of as a learner, and ended up then how I became a teacher. I was a teaching assistant at Bowling Green State University in their visual communication and graphic design program. Did that during completion of my master's. Then I ended up working for an online program management company as an instructional designer. Now, this was a really interesting experience because I was working with small schools, typically 3,000 enrollments or less, a lot of private institutions, and helping to design everything from a master's of business program that was a brand new program, competency-based education, to helping with some of the seminary school class development. While working with that company, they purchased a software boot camp. I'm not sure if do you have boot camps in Indonesia? Learning boot camps, typically high intensity, like month-long, two-month-long experiences. They're pretty popular over here in the United States in software development. But I ended up being an instructional coach for them and assisted them with the transition from a face-to-face boot camp experience, which think about what we deal with in traditional learning and how it's spread out over 16 weeks and, you know, a couple hours a week here and there. This is compressing all of that into a short amount of time. So all of the frustrations, all of the everything that our learners face kind of gets accelerated. And within that, we switched learning management systems 3 times. Quite an adventure, and I led most of that. During that, I became an adjunct at Northwest State Community College, and then 4 years ago, luckily, they hired me as a full-time instructor, and I have been there since. Took over a program that, full disclosure, Lynn, I don't think you'll argue with me, needed some attention. And since that time, I've worked to take the program from a face-to-face model and start to hybridize it, incorporate more online, more synchronous and asynchronous online instruction, into the program. What's interesting about Northwest State Community College is we are the only community college in the 6-county region that we serve. And I don't want to steal Lana's thunder, but connecting to some of those people, and we're talking hundreds of miles, and we have issues of transportation and multiple issues. So it's can be difficult for us to connect to those students, but incorporating some of the remote instructional techniques and best practices is a way for us to do that. So while COVID-19 and our response was a challenge because of that, it really, I think, has opened up some possibilities for us to be able to serve our wider community. So a couple other things to bring up. If anybody's ever tried a MOOC, are you familiar with what MOOCs are? The massively open online courses, Coursera, things like that. Full disclosure, I've started about 100 of them and only have finished really 3 in my life. And I bring this up because there's some important lessons that I learned. The vast majority of MOOCs that I participated in follow really that same format of here's some text, here's a video, now go post in a discussion thread, post your assignment in a discussion platform, and do some peer reviews. For whatever reason, my personality, that is not engaging enough for me to feel like I want to continue participating. The 3 classes that I did complete, there were some very interesting things that I think we can learn. There's a Coursera Introduction to Copyright course that is, I think it's by Duke University. I apologize, I can't remember exactly. But one of the most interesting things about that Introduction to Copyright course is that instead of the traditional video where you have a single instructor or faculty member speaking into the camera, that was one of the first times that I ever saw a video of 2 instructors speaking to each other. So it almost felt like I was in the room with a group of professionals having a conversation and was able to eavesdrop, and it felt much, much more engaging. So I hear from some of our faculty, and not just at Northwest State Community College, but other peers at other institutions, that fear of maybe getting in front of a camera and lecturing. Online learning doesn't have to be that. Online learning, we can have conversations amongst our peers, and I think there's huge value in that for our learners because they're able to see and model how professionals interact with one another. The second class I'll bring up here, master class. If you're not familiar with master class, I recommend checking that out as you look at moving into online learning. They're doing some really interesting stuff, some really engaging stuff, high quality content. And it runs the gamut of, I've taken I should have put this one, I forgot to include one that I didn't finish. Daniel Negreanu is a poker player. He's got a very interesting master class that I did complete. But with the Annie Leibovitz, she's a photographer, famous photographer, her master class. One of the most interesting things with her course, even though it was a photography class, it was halfway through the class before she even picked up a camera. It was a lot of conversation, discussion in a workshop environment. So again, video production as part of the equation, and multiple people inside of the shot having a conversation. But it was not a tutorial based, here's the buttons, here's the menus, here's how you use the camera. It was very much helping the learner to have an understanding of the concepts that they were going to apply, which I think is important because sometimes as we engage with online learning or see online learning, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Udemy or things like that, they sometimes tend to be tutorial heavy. And that, in my humble opinion, is one of the ways to not engage a learner. We don't learn from tutorials. We may be able to make something happen in the moment, but it's not going to be true learning. It's not addressing any of the higher level thinking. I think that is what we should probably be doing in higher ed and beyond. The third course there, if you're familiar with Steve Martin, he's one of my favorite comedians. He's got a phenomenal masterclass on comedy writing, and he does a workshop series inside of a video. And it's really interesting because you have Steve Martin sitting in, a folding chair, in all honesty, with about 5 or 6 people surrounding him. And the camera is kept at a low angle with everybody else. So you feel like you're part of that group actually workshopping and having those conversations. And where I think that's important is when we talk about online learning, and I realize now that I'm going to say this, and it might offend some of you in Indonesia because of all your islands, but sometimes online learning gets translated in the mind of learners, at least that I've incorporated with, as island learning. Like they're left on an island all into themselves in those learning environments. So it's really, really important that isolation that some online learners feel, we combat with techniques of communication, but then also within the way that we structure some of our materials to make them feel included. And you can honestly do that with video production, where you place the camera, those type of things. So I highly recommend checking those out if you're able to. Masterclass, I think it's 180. Can I unmute myself? I can unmute myself. I apologize but Masterclass is well worth the price. And I get no kickback from that. So Duty, if you can, or maybe somebody else from the university, just can you give a little bit of tell me about yourself and what your goals are, I guess, as you work to transition into online learning. Where are you at with traditional? What does that mean? And then where you're looking to go. Would you like to field that, Duty, or is there somebody else that might be able to give myself and the others who are going to be speaking some insight into what goes on in Indonesia and universities?
Okay. Currently that we got some news from the Ministry of Education that probably that the online learning will be an option or will be permanent. Okay, or probably that they're going to make it a hybrid, so traditional mixed with the online learning. And so far that it's quite rarely to find that Indonesian universities doing this kind of online learning. We only can find at the Open University or the other university, like the common one, that we do not have that kind of online learning. And with the news like that, it seems that the university have to prepare themselves, okay, to face the future. If not, they're gonna be like quite difficult for them to move forward. And yeah, what the purpose of this. I mean that we're gonna find that which way or which solutions that probably can be suitable for the university to apply, okay, for the online education, so the online learning. Okay, that's all, Michael. Thank you.
So just real quick, do you have? There's a great comment over in there that I'll address in the chat. But Duty, do you have any online classes currently, or are you starting from scratch?
Yes, I have online class. Okay, because I'm teaching the junior high school students, and from the first time, it's just from a scratch. It was so hard for us to adapt or to adjust. So we're really in chaos, you know. So most of the teacher, okay, they didn't give that kind of online teaching. They just gave the students homework, assignment, tasks, huge lot of tasks and assignments made the students stressful. Okay, and the parents also complained that why the teachers just give homework again. Okay, that's the problem, you know. In Indonesia, we have problem with the the bandwidth, the internet.
Yeah.
Okay, we do not have like a very good quality internet like American. Okay, but
I will.
then, yes.
No, I will tell you this, and this plays right in the comment, and I'm quoting here. In India, we find it difficult to reach the rural and students from far-reaching areas, poor connectivity. We face the same thing in rural United States. Our population, you know, we have more farms than we do urban areas inside of the United States. And Lana, I don't know exactly what the numbers were, but we definitely had a group of part of our population who had poor internet connections, which might have been fine if there was only one person at home trying to use the internet. But we had 5, 6, 7 people at home, parents trying to work from home, multiple students trying to work from home. So the bandwidth and connectivity issues, I feel you with all of that. It is something that our in all honesty, our governments at least are going to have to help us address. I know in Ohio, we're fortunate. They've started to move in that direction. There's a meeting in a few weeks. But yeah, I have a slide later that talks about how online doesn't always have to be all about the technology, but you have to have the technology of being able to connect with the internet in order to deliver some of this stuff. I mean, there's no way out around that. Other than we had a lot of some similar things. It sounds like we had some of our K-12 institutions sending home paper packets of homework, which I think sounds exactly like you were talking about, Duty, that homework, busy work type thing. Interesting. There's another comment there from Renata. Accomplishing engaged learners and appropriate specific instructional design with all circumstances. No video, loss of connectivity, inability to close communicate. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. The other thing that you'll face, and there's another conversation there about the knowledge and infrastructure of using the internet. If the faculty aren't comfortable using some of the technology, that's going to be part of the issue as well. So there's definitely professional development that we're going to have to make sure faculty get in order to understand some of these things. So I'm gonna keep moving them. Okay, so Australia, awesome. Even with the net, you do paper packets as well. Yep. Yeah, so those of you who are all Lelaine Veray, if you hover over the picture of your name, and you should be the one at the top of the whole graphics list there, or the video list, and click on the 3 dots, you should be able to rename yourself there in the drop down. So yeah, definitely. So technology, but again, this is this use of technology and this use of remote technology specifically, that is the future of work for many of us, right? If you're going to be able to, I've got peers in software development and instruction who they've worked from their home for over 10 years. Some of the people who I know who make the most money are people who are working from home. I don't see it going back. I think we've learned how remote stuff, while it has its challenges, if we're able to connect remotely, widens our audience, as evident from Lana and I sitting here having a conversation with people who, it's what, 8 o'clock in the morning for you. It is 8 o'clock at night for us. So yes. Emergency situations, drastic solutions, which we'll get there in a second, because I'm going to talk about what I did emergency response COVID-19 and some of the things I think we can learn from that. So I guess the last question I have here, Duty, is what's your academic year like? Are you semesters? How does that work at the university level? Because we have 2 semesters, fall, spring. We do run classes in the summer, but the majority of our instruction happens during those fall and spring semesters.
Okay, in Vietnam, we got like 2 semesters a year. Okay, so we don't have spring or fall, something like that, because we only got 2 seasons here. Okay.
I was checking out the weather there. It looks like a nice place to visit.
Yeah. But in our Pontianak city, there is quite rainy. Okay, it rains all the time, all the year, and it's not really the kind of, you will enjoy the rain here. Okay. Yeah, that's only 2 semesters in a year.
Okay, interesting. Okay, awesome. So, part of what we just did was hopefully understanding and trying to understand each other. You understand where some of my ideas come from. I understand some of the challenges that you all are facing over with what Duty has shared and then over in the chat. But this is really important, because understanding each other and understanding our learners specifically allows us to do 3 things. Measuring learning. That is the only way we're ever going to be able to assess what we're doing, but then also use that information for continuous improvement. As people and groups of people who are going to start incorporating online learning, there are going to be mistakes that you make. Just it's going to happen. Change, as part of change, that happens. What you're going to have to make sure that you're doing is having a culture that is open to innovation and exploration, and then have a system in place where those things are measured and kept track of, so that you can continuously improve. The other part where it's important for having that understanding, especially between the teachers and learners, is that we need to be able to provide mental models for our students, for them to understand some of our heavier concepts. And that is, we typically would do that with use of metaphors that they have experience with. So if we know what they're interested in, we can then hopefully identify some metaphors that meet them where they are in their understanding and their interests. The other thing, I think probably the most important thing why we try to understand each other is trust. Trust is built on being able to empathize with each other, empathize with our students who are fighting an internet connection that is being shared with mother, brother, sister, father. Having empathy with them comes from having an understanding of who they are, what they're trying to achieve. So, awesome. Spring 20. This was last semester for us, when halfway through the semester, it was announced that we were going to close the doors of the campus for the most part and go full online. Now, I have to give full disclosure here. I was on campus during the second half of the semester, because I was assimilated, for lack of a better phrase, into our information technology, our IT department, to assist other faculty and people with using Zoom and web technologies. So I was on campus using the resources, but I also did some of my classes from this exact chair. One of the things that happened right away, and Lana, you might be able to expand on this later, but when we sent students the message that we were going full remote, one of the biggest challenges we faced was connecting with students and figuring out where they were at, what they needed technology-wise to be able to continue moving on. I think we spent a lot of time and energy just trying to connect with students. Now, again, I don't want to sound like I know everything here, but I was very fortunate because we had set up a system prior to this of how I expected students to communicate using a tool called Slack. If you're not familiar with it, I know Duty, you are, some of the others. Slack is basically an instant messaging type service that allows you to do some different things. I used that at the very beginning of my program when we were face-to-face, and had been using it and testing it and playing with it for about 3 years prior to this this past semester. And within 2 days of us announcing we were going to go full remote, I had contacted each and every one of my students. I knew exactly where they were, what their needs were going to be, and was able to start addressing those things and moving things forward. So having a tool that makes it easy for you to connect with your learners is going to be vital here. I mean, I don't know any other way that you do it. Email, I'm not sure how your students act with email. Ours, you're lucky if you can get 50% of them to respond to an email. Awesome. So there's somebody else in the chat that used Slack. Slack is a phenomenal tool. It's been awesome. The other thing that we did, I was teaching 5 classes. They were meeting 1 or 2 days a week, depending on the class. I decided that I was going to do all of my courses with Zoom synchronous the same time we had our classes anyway. That I felt that was going to be the least disruption in people's lives, is if we at least kept the time the same. So what I did is I communicated out in general through Slack that was what we were going to do. But then I went ahead and created a Google Calendar event for that class, a repeating event, linked Zoom to that. So the Zoom link was right inside of that calendar event, and invited all of my students. So that way they had the link. It was on their calendar, the time that they were going to show up to class. Now, if you're going to go full remote and you're not going to have synchronous sessions, obviously that isn't needed. But I truly feel like if you're at the ground floor of trying to go and do some remote online instruction, build in a synchronous component where you can connect with your learners real time. Even if it's only that 1 or 2 sessions up front, that socialization, that being able to look into somebody's eyes and being able to have a face to a name, I think is hugely, hugely important. Full disclosure, during the spring semester, I believe we lost 2 weeks as we made that transition. We extended spring break by a week, so we lost that week. And then the week that we came back was really, we used that as an opportunity to define what our communication protocols were going to be, and then also to talk about how the rest of the semester was going to play out. But in all honesty, outside of missing maybe 1 or 2 assignments, it felt like I don't want to say real semester, but it felt like a real semester, for lack of a better way to say it. I brought this up with Slack. Communication is going to be the foundation. Don't rely on email specifically, unless you have set up very, very, very specific protocols for how you expect students to engage. And I guess that just depends on what the traditional methods of communication are within your institution and within your cultures. For us in the United States, email has become too much. Lana, how many unread emails do you have in your inbox? More than a few, right?
Yeah, way too many to tell.
Yes. And our students, they aren't using it like we want them to. I have had to contact students through Instagram. I've had to contact students through direct message and Twitter. Any way that I've been able to stay connected with my students, I've had to connect, but then also direct back to that primary form of communication that we used in my program, which was Slack. Now, we talk about communication with our learners, but we also want to talk about communication amongst our peers and ourselves. With online instruction, I don't only think that it is the learners that sometimes feel like they're isolated. I also think some of our faculty feel like they're isolated. So setting up channels for faculty to communicate and share best practices, share what went right when they tried something new or what went wrong when they tried something new. That communication, setting that stuff up front is going to make innovation so much easier, because the worst thing that we can do, the most ineffective, inefficient thing that we can do is have everybody repeating the same mistakes over and over and over and not sharing. If you're going to go online, if you're going to have people outside of the building, you have to find a way to make sure they stay connected. And communication will help do that. With regards to communication, kind of piggybacking off it, as we talk about our learning management systems, we've got Canvas that Bowling Green State University uses. Sakai is a pretty popular one that we use. We've got Brightspace by D2L, Moodle, all kinds of learning management systems, Google Classroom, wherever you're going to house your information for your classes, your content for your classes. Two things, if you're just starting out, and even if you have some stuff already out there, consistency and clarity, I think, is vital, especially for learners who may not be comfortable with the technology. We have to get beyond this idea that just because people are younger than us, they're better with technology than us. That is not true. They're good users maybe of the technology here, but they don't have necessarily the understanding of some of the things that are going on and how to navigate it. During my master's program, this is years ago, so I don't know the exact study or anything like that, but 70%, I think, of college students who came into the LMS were kind of underprepared with how to use it and unfamiliar with how to use it. So that consistency and clarity across all of your classes is going to be vital to just make it easier for them. So when they're in one class and they're looking for something, syllabus, resources, it's going to be the same place in all the classes that they're looking at. So, there's a bright light on my face. Another thing that goes along with consistency and clarity is this idea of using the appropriate words and consistent language. As an example, we use the word course. Right now, a course could mean an 8-week course, a 16-week course, a 1-hour thing that you might do on a platform like Udemy. I don't know exactly how to, or I don't have a cheat sheet of things for you all to maybe take away with you of what to call things, because I think obviously your cultures are different, your experiences are different, the words that you use already will be different. But for us, I'll give you an example. Where we want to get important with, or where we want to focus, and it's important to get words right, is we traditionally would call the people in our classes students. We've made the conscious effort to transition from calling them students to learners, because we feel that a person in our learning environment is there to learn, and that puts a lot more of the emphasis on what they're in our classrooms to do, versus the word student, which would imply that they study. And the transition, it hasn't been easy, Lana, because even you and I both slip up and say student, but that consciousness, that conscious effort to use a word that is more meaningful is important. So as you start to choose your words, make sure you get them right. Simple, clear definitions. Be careful, because a lot of words already have meaning, and feel free to invent words if you need to. It's important also when we think about our learners. I'll give give an example here of the last one. It's important to understand that our learners talk to each other and communicate to each other. They'll ask their peers questions before they ask us. So make it easy for others to communicate what you have going on inside of your classrooms, inside of your universities. As an example, worked with a college library who was trying to get more students to use the course reserves. Now, I don't know if what the equivalency in some of your institutions would be, but it's basically the library would house textbooks or books for the course that somebody was able to check out. Well, the phrase course reserves to a learner means absolutely not. I mean, it has no meaning. They have to, they're inside of their, how do I say it? They don't know exactly what that means. But if we say something like free textbook for the class, using that language makes it easier for student A to say, hey, there's a free textbook for this class at the library, and much more likely for the message in which you're trying to communicate to get spread out or spread faster and more accurately. So I'm going to share now a few of the resources that I lean into when I design classes. And I think as you move from traditional online to, traditional face-to-face to online classes, this is a great opportunity for you to relook at the curriculum and the classes. And one of the things that's important is to use backward design, beginning with the end in mind, looking at the outcome that you want your learner to have, and then designing backwards from there. So I've got the image here of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People from Stephen Covey. I feel like that's an important book. It's kind of heady for students, but I think as instructors and as administrators, what we want our institutions to put out is highly effective people. Us being able to read this and maybe incorporate some of it into our co-curricular and curricular activities, I think leads to better results across the board. I'm going to I teach design. So what we're talking about here is designing something new. And I want to just give you a quick definition for design here so you can kind of understand a little bit about the design process and break it down for you a little bit. Design is a way of thinking, doing, thinking some more, and responding over and over again until it works. And I think that over and over again until it works is very important for people who are going to be starting out new online programs. You're not going to get it right the first time. There's not going to be the resources to be able to do it. You're going to have to continuously improve and do the best that you can with what you have, especially when we consider the rapid pace with which our next semester is approaching. And we'll continue, we get a break in the summer, us faculty, yet it goes by pretty quickly. And that time to refresh doesn't always offer the ample time to reinvent. If your organization, your institution is going to take on online learning and it's something brand new, I think it's important to really think about the culture and change and how you manage change within the college. This will go back into communicating what you're doing, understanding the people that you're designing for. It's really, really important. And this book here, Change by Design by Tim Brown, highly recommended as you start to incorporate change. Quick backwards design workflow. You come up with a deliverable, the final assessment, the final project, whatever it is, the final test. Then you chunk back the parts of that, and that becomes some of your instruction. And then I think the idea of a mind map is really important. In a lot of our learning management systems, they really follow a linear flow of information. So you're going to approach and go through this topic linearly. Well, we know so many of our topics are not linear. They're interrelated. Topics touch each other. Presenting a mind map of what your course is will help the learner to see the relationships between all of the things and see it more as a whole instead of just a list of things to go through inside of learning management system. If you want to know more about backwards design, Grant Wiggins and Jay McTighe, Understanding by Design is a phenomenal book to look at. So some of the core principles, and this is really important, especially for those of us that are, underfunded, for lack of a better way to say it. It is not about the technology in the classroom or the technology in the remote learning experience. It is always going to be about the relationship with the learner. Always. So you may not have the $10,000 smart board. All of your people may not have the fastest of internet connections, But if you as a faculty member can connect with a learner and have a shared understanding about what motivates them and what they're trying to achieve, you will be able to do amazing things without having all of the bells and whistles of technology. Learning should be a means to an end. I'm fortunate within my discipline. A lot of what I do is project-based. I teach video production, so there's a video at the end. I teach web design, so there's a website at the end. As much as you can, as you start to redesign learning and take some of your traditional face-to-face classes online, think about ways that you can make them more of a means to accomplishing something, because that is going to be vital for maintaining motivation and making people feel like they're doing something other than busy work. Motivation, brought that up just in the last slide. Motivation matters. If you haven't read Start With Why by Simon Sinek or looked at his TED Talk, phenomenal way for understanding how we just present ideas and then have an understanding of what our own motivation is as an institution. That's part of the culture building, part of the communication, but then also that understanding of why our learners are inside of our spaces. That understanding, taking that time to build these relationships, will make online, as you deploy it, so much better for everybody. If you're going to have students who are going to be coming from a traditional face-to-face environment into online, one of the things you may encounter is a fixed mindset and some resistance to growth and change. This book by Carol Dweck is phenomenal and talks about fixed and growth mindset. Basically, growth mindset is this idea that you're able to learn, and intelligence is something you can cultivate and increase. A few other things, and I'll wrap up here. Duty, how much time do I have? Am I over time yet?
Not yet.
Okay, sweet. Because I do want to leave some time for questions. Creating content can be expensive. I know I have a background in video production. Creating content can be expensive. It will be vital for those of you, especially on a fixed budget, to understand that when you create content, try to maximize its distribution as much as possible. If I perhaps shoot a 30-minute lecture and or conversation between two peers as an artifact for a learner to engage with, that can be turned into a transcript as a text version. That can be chunked out into small snippets that could be shared multiple ways. That requires a team, and that may require your institutions to have some video production people on staff. It may require you to have some copy editors on staff. It may also require you to have some graphic designers on staff, simply because me as a faculty member, even if I create a text document, it would probably resonate, or there's definitely going to be some complex issues inside of that text document that if there is a graphic design, will make it easier for our learner to, perhaps easier for our learner to grasp. Now, most faculty aren't graphic designers. Most faculty aren't video production people. It's going to be important for your institutions to have those resources available to support faculty. Keep it humorous, even when it's serious. That's part of the reason I put my thumbs up picture at the beginning there. I try to get everybody to smile. What we're talking about, educating and changing the lives of people is serious business, but keeping it fun, that helps us to remember, helps us to engage, releases dopamine and all those other things that make the day better. And this is from my own experience. Experience is the most effective way to learn anything. And this is going to take some thinking, because even within my own discipline, I don't know how necessarily to make this work. How can we, and I guess this is the question that you take to your divisions, departments, to your peers. How can we create a meaningful experience inside of this remote learning environment? Probably different for different disciplines, but like this idea of just ingesting material and taking a test or writing an essay, I'm going to argue that's the least effective way to teach anybody anything. it's fairly simple to do project-based learning inside of a classroom when everybody's there at the same place, same time. But we're really going to have to get creative and innovative here as we try to make that happen remote/online. So I'll give you the quick cheat sheet here of first steps. And I apologize because it's dark here and I'm losing my beautiful sunlight. So I look like I'm trying to hide, but I'm not. If I'm an institution that has no online learning or very, very little online offerings, first things first, begin with the end in mind and define your goals. Start with a small group of willing stakeholders, faculty who want to be involved, learner population that you trust. Get together and start defining what online learning looks like for you, and understand your users, your teachers, your learners. Define the language you will use. That will be so important as you try to communicate, or as you do communicate. Talk to your learners, talk to your teachers. Define a process for how you're going to design, deploy, and then evaluate the effectiveness of your courses. I think you want to have that up front and have the people, your course writers, your instructors, all understand what that process is and have it part of the culture that we are going to continuously try to improve every day, because that's what learning really is. Then it's great to have a process defined, but if you're not going to use it, it's worthless. Make sure that you are going to have a group of people who are responsible for making sure that process gets used. And then continue to test for quality and continue to improve. That's the first steps. And it may not seem like a lot, but that honestly is quite a bit of work. So that said, any questions? I thank you everybody for your attention. I mean, sometimes I ramble, and that's just why I'm a good teacher, I guess. But and let me see if I can find a slide that will actually get some light in my face. Hold on a second here. Can I? There. That's a little bit better. You can see me now. Apologize for that. So any questions? I've got the chat open. Do we need to start to equip our learners to have a good communication skills, and how will it be before we get started our online learning? So I can only answer the first part of that, but I think 100%, if we can get our learners to be better communicators, that leads to a better future for all of us. Thank you. I appreciate the kind words over in the chat. Duty, I don't know if we'll be able to, well, yeah, after the fact, Duty, I will get you the link out, or you already actually have it, I think, to the Flipboard from the Ohio Leads Summit that we did that included some resources. Flipboard is a curation tool that I use for my classes. Okay, there's a great question. How to motivate your students online, any practical skills? Talk to them. Find out why they're in the classroom or in the online environment. We have to be able to, and again, this is where the idea of responsive learning design comes in. We have to be able to slightly tweak our experiences for the needs of the learner. Prime example, I teach, when I was a grad assistant, I was teaching video production at Bowling Green. It was a required class. Out of 20 students, very first day, I would ask, why are you here? Are you here because you're passionate about the subject? Are you here because you have a passing interest in the subject and you'll pay attention unless something better comes along? Or you're simply here because it's a required class? Having that understanding about your learner will help you, as it relates to online and remote, will help you be able to know exactly who and when, how often you should be reaching out to people, right? If you've got somebody who you know is motivated, passionate, you reach out to them and they don't necessarily respond immediately, I wouldn't worry too much about it. You know, if it's another day or two goes by and they still haven't responded, I would definitely sound whatever alarm or notification system that you have. But if you have somebody who's really not interested in the class and just there because they're required to be, and they drop off the map, I would honestly have more concern about that student earlier on and trying to set up, use my system to track them down. Oh my goodness, Judy, am I going to be able to get this? Would be awesome. So let's try to do this. There's a whole lot of questions over in the chat. I don't know that I'll be able to get to all of them with the amount of time I have, but if you can make sure that I get it, those the chat, I can actually write out something and share that. So I want to be conscious of the time I have, because I think I'm over.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry everybody. I'll stop. Thank you.
Okay, sorry for interrupting, Michael. The time's up, but yeah, a great presentation. There's huge question, okay, and there are so many questions from YouTube. So we have YouTube link because we can't put everybody in Zoom. So we have YouTube, and there are a lot of questions there. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna pass the question to you, and probably you will be able to answer them. Okay, later. Okay, I'm gonna. Yeah, great. Okay, now thank you, Michael, for the presentation. Now we're going to move to the next presenter. Okay.
That's me.
Okay. Melissa Bohorquist.
Perfect.
I'm mistaken to pronounce the name. How do you pronounce the name?
Bohorquez.
Bohorquist.
That was very good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Okay, Melissa is the success manager from Go Formative or Formative. Okay, I've been using that for quite long, and it's so interesting because I think this is the most complete platform I use. Okay, I could find from the internet, and you can try the free version for it, right?
Yes. So hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Michael, great presentation. This is just a great discussion. So thank you for having me here again. As Daddy said, I'm Melissa, and I'm a success manager for Formative. Formative is a online-based instructional and assessment tool. So it's very versatile. It's been used by many districts across the United States and internationally for both in-class instruction and also for virtual learning, which is so important right now, right? So my role as a success manager is just to ensure that all of our users have the tools necessary to use Formative and make the most out of it, which right now, it really is all about making sure that our users, our teachers, our educators know how to turn their classroom into a virtual classroom. A little bit of background on me. I work for higher educational institutions for about a little bit over 10 years. During that time, I actually made a discovery that concerned me greatly. Based on data from the institution I was working for, we realized that over 50% of our freshmen, of our new students, were going into remedial courses instead of going into college level classes. And that was a concern that really stuck with me. Throughout those years, I helped develop quite a few programs to mitigate some of the factors that prevent students from reaching the level that they need to be at. And what I discovered is that the main piece is being able to intervene when it matters. So timely intervention and differentiated instruction. So how do we adapt, the way we teach our different students, right? They all have different learning styles, and how can we accommodate that? So that is something that Formative allows you to do. Formative is a tool that allows you to send feedback immediately, so you can see the students' work coming in real time, and you can intervene when it matters. You can give them feedback in the form of video. You can send them the notes from your class. You can send them emojis because we know we'll respond to them, and so much more. So without further ado, I'm going to show you guys how to do it. I was going to do a live presentation, but I had some computer malfunctions, and I'm sure all of you can relate to that. So I lost some of my training content. So I'm going to show a pre-recorded webinar that my colleague Rebecca did, but it's very comprehensive. And if there are any questions after that, if time allows, then we'll do a Q&A. If not, I'm just going to drop my email in the chat. So feel free to send me any questions that you might have after this presentation. Okay, I'm also going to put the link to the webinar in the chat box in case the sound is not too great. So you guys can just go to YouTube and watch it there. And then again, we'll just do a Q&A after. Okay, so I'm going to present my screen. Let's see. Sorry, I'm having a hard time finding. Okay, it says one participant can share at a time. So I think someone else is sharing or. Oh, I'm sorry, I found it. Okay. So you know what, actually, let me send the link before I do this. And why is it? Sorry, guys, I don't know why. Oh, there it is. Just 1 second. Okay, so I've sent the link and we're going to start at the 2-minute mark. I'm just going to put it there. Okay, and now I'm going to share. Actually, I'd like to say something before we start. Formative is a free platform. We do have premium features that that we have a package for, and also team features, but most of the features are free. So feel free to just pop into our website and create an account.
Sorry, Melissa, we can't hear anything.
Oh,
So when you share your screen, there's going to be a checkbox down at the bottom underneath that to share computer audio. You'll want to make sure that's checked.
Oh, I thought I did that. It says that you're sharing your screen, and it did not give me a box to accept the audio. Let me try this again. Can everyone hear it? Is the sound okay?
No, we still can't hear it.
I'm so sorry. Let me see why, because I can hear on my end. I'm sorry, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, can you did you post the YouTube link?
I did.
Oh, so I'm sorry. So it kind of flew away there with everybody else chatting. Would you mind posting it again?
Yeah, no problem.
The link to the video?
Maybe someone else can share it. That might be.
I'll try sharing it and we'll see what happens.
Okay. Okay, give me just one quick second. Okay, I'm getting this link. Okay, there it is.
Awesome. All right,
There it is, and it should start at the 2-minute mark. And then I was planning on stopping at the 42-minute mark. And I'm so sorry because I'm probably over the time right now.
Can you hear it?
I can.
In this tutorial, we're going to look at a great formative assessment tool called Formative. a very
I am
original
so
name,
sorry.
right?
That is
And
not
the website for
video.
this.
I don't know why.
In this video,
That's not the video?
This should be the video. I don't know why. I'm pretty sure I grabbed the right link. Hold on one second. It is not. Sorry guys, technical difficulties. I really had it all set up. Let me just go to it again.
Duty, do you mind if I share from my computer? Or would you rather do it from yours?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Yeah, if you give me the link, we can make it happen.
Here it is. I'm so sorry. It's the last one that I sent.
Awesome. Give me 2 seconds here.
Thank you.
Actually, Melissa, hi there. You
Hi.
can go to advanced if you want the audio from your computer. Go to advanced. Under advanced, you should be able to get it.
Yeah.
Not want to import. And you can even deselect individual students as well. So if there's any kind of old classes that come up here,
So
you
let's
don't
go
have
back
to
to the
import
2-minute
those.
mark and
These topics.
So you can hear everything cool?
yes,
Awesome.
I can.
So just yell when you want me to stop.
We're going to focus first of all on getting started, how to create and import classes, how to add co-teachers, the tracker, and how to adjust some settings.
I think it would be better if you could expand your
All right,
window.
so once you've logged into Formative, creating a class, if you haven't done that already, is very simple. I'm just going to go through this very quickly, since I know that most of you are at schools that have already set this up. So to add a class, you simply go to the Classes tab, which is the second one along the top, once you've logged into Formative. And you can see you have 3 options here. You can import from Google Classroom, import from Clever, and that's a very quick process. And if you don't have either of those, you can create your own class manually. I just want to quickly show you the process for Google Classroom, but the process if you have Clever accounts is really similar. So you would just click Import from Google Classroom, and then you select the Google account that is linked to Google Classroom. And then on this Google Classroom import window, you'll see a list of your classes and the students in those classes. And you can deselect any classes that you do not want to import. And you can even deselect individual students as well. So if there's any kind of old classes that come up here, you don't have to import those. And then once you're ready, you just click Import, and those classes will be added to your dashboard here. And you can see I have a Google class down here, P3. And anytime the roster of that class changes, a student joins or leaves the class, all I would have to do is click Update Students and then follow the same process. And although I don't have a Clever account connected today, the process for Clever is really similar. If you don't have either of those, if you click plus new class, then you can create your own class by typing in the class name, abbreviation, the grades, and the subjects, and then click Create. And most of my classes here are ones that I created myself. To add students to the class, you simply click that plus add students button, and then you can see you have some different options here. Now, if students create their own accounts, or if they already have accounts in Formative, maybe with another teacher, then the way that they would join your class is during the sign up process, or if they already have an account, there's a button on their dashboard to join a new class. They'll add your class code, which is a 6-letter code that appears to the very right of your class on your classes tab. So you just need to make a note of that class code if you do ask students to create their own accounts, maybe if you have older students. If your students are younger, you can create accounts for them. So you type in their first, last name, and then you would create a username and password for them. So then you would just need to make sure you make a note of that so that you can tell them. And you can always check your student list and reset their password from here. Now, because you're in a partner or a pilot school, one really cool feature is that you can add a co-teacher to a class, and that will give them access to all the data from that class. To do that, you simply click where it says co-teachers, click on the little plus icon, and then simply type in the email address of a colleague. And this does need to be a colleague that is in the same team as you, or overall team. So it does need to be somebody that either has a partner or a pilot account. Okay, and then you just click add, and then that co-teacher is added to the class, and then they'll have access to the same data as you. So every time you assign a formative to that class, your co-teacher will be able to see it, and they'll be able to see the student responses. Likewise, if they assign a formative to your class, you will be able to see that formative, and you'll be able to see the student responses as well. All right, so that is our classes tab. I'm just going to show you now the next tab along, which is called the tracker tab. And the reason I want to show you this is to show you why it's so important to add standards to your formative accounts. So your tracker is where you can track student progress against standards over time. So you can see there's two different views here. There's a formatives view, which has the list of all the formatives I've assigned to the class, and this is my 8th grade class. And we also have the standards and tags view. And this is all the standards that I've tagged to questions in the formatives I've assigned to this class. And you can see that I can click on a student name to bring up a kind of summary of how they're doing against standards. I can also dig into individual standards by clicking on the score, and then I can see all the questions that they've answered that were tagged to those standards. I also can see my class average for each standard, and then the overall average against all standards as well. So this is a really fantastic way to check, are my students on track? How are they doing against the standards that we're working towards? But in order to make use of this, you do need to add standards to your formative account first. So I'm going to show you how to do that next. So I'm going to click, and this might be covered by my face, but just so you know, I'm going right up to the top right of my screen where I'll see my photo or initials. And when I click on my photograph or initials in the very top right, I get a drop-down menu, and I'm choosing the second option, which is called Settings. All right, so this is my settings page, and this is where I can add standards to my account. And there's no limit to the number of standards you can add. So if you have multiple classes, multiple grade levels, multiple subjects, you can add as many standards as you like. And to do that, you simply click plus standards there. And you can see we have a long list of states and organizations for you to choose from. So for example, if you choose Common Core, if you teach Common Core, you could choose that. And then you would choose the subject that you teach, and then choose the grade level that you teach. And then you can just scroll through and check that these are the right standards. And if they are, click confirm and exit. And those standards are automatically added to your accounts. And like I said, there's no limit to the standards you can add here, but you do need to add your standards here first before you can tag them to any questions and start tracking them in the tracker. I do just also want to really quickly mention that if you're on a team plan, then you can also adjust your score thresholds and change the colors for those as well. You can assign a default point value so that every question in a formative has by default this value, although you can change that. And you can also change your default assign options as well. Now, in formative, everything auto-saves every second, but the one exception is this page. So if you do change your score thresholds, point values, or default assign options, you will need to click Save Changes. But that is really one of the only places in formative where you ever need to hit save. All right. Okay, so that is our getting started. So next we're going to move on to building a formative. So now I'm going to head up to my formatives tab, which is in the very, very top left. I can see someone's asked a question about co-teaching. Hopefully my colleague Jill is going to be answering that soon, otherwise I will come back to it. So I'm sorry, I'm using some vocab that might be a bit unfamiliar to you guys. I apologize. If you have a free team subscription, if you recently signed up for that, or if you are one of our partner schools, all of the features I'm talking about today apply to you. You have access to all of those. All right, so I'm in my formatives tab now, which is at the very top left. And you can see, I just want to quickly show you around this tab. So you can see I have my formatives and folders along the left. And then along the top here are my classes. And that's why you're asked for a 2-letter abbreviation when you create a class. And if I assign a formative to a class, then data starts appearing in the box, in the relevant box. And you can see for this formative, none of the students have taken it yet, 0 have submitted it. It is open, which is what this lightning bolt means. And then Some have additional symbols as well. For example, this formative, I set scores to return. So just to let you know, that's what those symbols are. All right, so to create a new formative, you want to click this plus new formative button near the top left. And this will take you to what we call the edit screen for a formative. You can see we have different options at the top. So edit is where we'll build the formative, and obviously we'll assign it when it's ready, and then view responses once students start to respond. Now your first step with any formative will always be to add a title, so I'm going to do that now. And you can see that that auto-saves just like everything else every second in formative. And then to get started with adding content and questions, you click on the bouncing blue plus, and you can see that you have these options here. And what we're going to focus on today is the content options. So you can add many different types of questions to a formative, but something that's probably particularly relevant to you guys right now, if you're working on distance learning, is that you can also add lots of different types of content. So we're going to look at the content options particularly. But I'm going to start off with one of these special options down the bottom, which is enhance a PDF doc or Google Doc. So with this question type, it's not really a question type, this content option is amazing because you can upload any kind of document you have from your computer or from Google Drive. And it doesn't actually have to be a PDF doc or Google Doc, despite the fact that that's the title of the question. Let's see what would be a good one. Let's do Revolutionary War worksheet. You can actually upload an image in this space. You can upload slides or a PowerPoint. In fact, there are many different file types that will work here. And what's amazing about this is you can upload resources and worksheets that you already have and then click to add questions on top. And that means that Formative can do the grading work for you and you don't have to type out questions again. Let me show you how this works. So you can click where you see a question on the worksheet, if it is a worksheet, and then I can choose from these different question options. So I'm going to choose a multiple choice question to start. Now I don't actually have to type my question, and I'm going to show you why in a second, but I can set an answer key so that Formative will grade it for me. And in this case, you set the answer key by clicking on the bubble. And then I can randomize the order of if I want to. In this case, I probably don't. And you can see that with any question type in Formative, you can tag it to a standard. So that's what I was talking about earlier. You can tag standards to questions and then track those standards in your tracker. I can also adjust the point value of the question up here. So my default point value is 10, but I can change that to be anything that I like, including 0. Now let me show you why you do not need to type the question out again. I'm going to introduce you to an amazing Formative feature, which is our student preview. Now to access that, you want to click on the eye icon near the top right. And that will bring up the student preview. So this shows me what the student will see in Formative. And you can toggle between laptops, if that's what you think your students will be using, tablets, and cell phones, which is really useful, I think, because some students, if you are doing distance learning, you may have students using a cell phone now to take their formatives. And you can see here that the student can see the worksheet and they can see the questions. I'm just going to go back to tablet view. And if a student needs to, they can actually zoom in on the worksheet to read it in more detail, and then they can click show questions to see the questions side by side. And that's why you do not need to type the question out again. And you can click anywhere on this to add additional questions. So maybe I'll add a short answer question this time. And you can add a correct answer. I'm not 100% sure if that is the correct answer. Maybe a history kind of expert will be able to tell me that. And with many question types, you have the option to do things like allowing for partial match, which will grade questions correct if the student includes the answer key phrase in their answer exactly. You can also make your questions case sensitive. So if the capital letter in the response is important, for example, you can choose that option. And once again, of course, you can tag this to any standard. Now let me give you a tip. When you're tagging questions to standards, you can start by typing out keywords, and then that will bring up all the standards you've added to your account that include those keywords. You can also start typing by the actual code. And then that will also bring up the standards that start with that code. And you can tag more than one standard to a question. All right, so that is our upload and transform feature. I'm going to show you some more content options now. Let's start with a fairly simple one, which is our text block. So with our text block, you can type any kind of text. Maybe watch the video and answer questions. And next, I'm going to add a video to this formative. I'm going to choose the video content option. Now, this is a very special option because actually you don't have to just, this actually uploads more than just videos, which I'll show you in a second. And unfortunately, I do not have YouTube pulled up, so I'm going to have to do that now. And it doesn't have to be YouTube. You can also add videos from Vimeo here too. And my internet always tends to slow down a tiny bit when I'm sharing my screen. So I'm sorry that this is taking a little bit of time. I'm going to search for Khan Academy because Khan Academy, I'm sure we all know, is a fantastic source of instructional videos for students. Let's go there and find a great video we can use. I can see we're getting questions in the chat, which is fantastic.
Hi everyone, Sal here from Khan Academy.
Hi Sal.
As I'm sure you're aware, we are finding ourselves collectively.
Please keep posting questions in the chat and my colleague Jill can answer those. All right, so maybe I'll choose this geometry video here.
Which picture divides a rectangle?
Okay, and then to add this as a video, I'm going to choose share down the bottom, and I'm going to copy the video link, and then I go back to my formative, and I can paste that into the video section and click update. And that will add the video to the formative. Now, this video content option is rather special. It doesn't just actually have to be videos that you upload here. You can actually use this space to upload Google Drive files, including audio files, video files, Google Docs, Google Sheets, things like that. So for example, my webinar content outline. As you'll know, most kind of Google Drive files have a share button in the top right, and then you can create a link sharing. Now, right now, this isn't public. So if I did, for example, want to put this into a formative, I would need to change the link sharing settings so that anyone with the link can view. So if you are going to embed a Google Drive file like this into a formative, just make sure that your link sharing is on anyone with the link. And that's really important because your students aren't going to be on your school network anymore. They're going to be on personal devices. So you do need to make sure that they're able to view any document you add. And then I'm just going to copy the link. And then I can paste that into this space and click update. And that will add the document to the formative. Now, students will not be able to edit a Google Doc. Just to let you know, obviously Google Docs, you can add editing permissions for students. They won't be able to edit it in a formative because when you add it like this to a formative, it publishes the document. So they'll be able to scroll through and read it, but they won't be able to edit it. All right. Now, as well as video, images, you can also add audio, a whiteboard, which is where you kind of draw kind of instructions. But the next content item, which is really cool that I'm going to show you, is embed. Now, embed is what you can use to embed other websites that you use. I apologize again for not pulling this up, but I'm going to pull up Flipgrid, which is a video response site that I'm sure many of you have heard of and might use. So you can actually embed Flipgrid right into your formative. And to do that, you would go to the website and log in as usual. So this is a Flipgrid that I already created. And you can see that Flipgrid is really helpful and it gives me a share code. Oh, that's just disappeared for some reason.
Answer keys to your questions that will be created automatically, which of course will save you so much time. So I'm in the view responses page, and if I click on the carrots, I can see the students that have submitted the formative. This check mark indicates that the student has submitted the formative. And if I hover over, it gives me a timestamp. Also, this graded out dot tells me that the student has opened the formative but has not submitted. And as you can see, it pulls a side panel where I can see all the answers. So I can do it one by one if I wanted to, or I can just look at the whole formative and all the responses. So, for example, if I go to the question number 6, I can see them displayed all together. So it makes it very easy for me to visualize how I can batch grade. So I can use this slider to just change the scale, and I could just select all the ones that I want to grade and either input the score or just use the sliding scale here. And I can also send them mass feedback. So I can send them all batch feedback. I can say, great job. And all of them will get this message. So that's how you send